Welcome to the number one friendship podcast in the country. I'm Aaron Karo.
I'm Matt Ritter.
And make sure to go to manoftheyearpodcast.com to grab our merch and YouTube to watch our clips. Matt, before we get into it, I have an idea. I have a business idea.
Okay, hit me with it.
For those of you watching on YouTube, both Matt and I are wearing your standard issue t-shirts, comfortable t-shirts. I believe that tags on t-shirts should go in the front.
Okay, first of all, clarify. First, I don't even think I have tags on my shirts anymore. Most tags don't even exist.
There's plenty of shirts. Most shirts still have tags. They're in the back. Not only is it itchy, but if you just want to see, what size am I? Or you're shopping, you can't look at it. I say the tag should go in the front, less itchy, and then you can just look down and see what size you're wearing.
I got to say, I do in theory agree with you, but I think I'm just living in a different zone, Kira. I haven't had a tag on a shirt.
You got tags on plenty of shirts. By the way, I bought you that shirt. I bought you the shirt you're wearing right now.
And thankfully, you stepped up on, hey, you know what? You're nicer to me than you are to yourself. You need to start treating yourself.
I do say
I love what you're saying. I think the common man should not have to have tags on the back.
Yeah. But it's also like, what purpose does it serve?
I wonder if you accidentally do something, if you rip the tag, is there a risk that you're going to rip the shirt? Is that why? I wonder why they put the tags in the back.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming because you maybe you don't want it right there, right above your clavicle. But I think it's
because I think it's when you're shopping, because you're looking at the front of the tee. They don't want you to have to mess up because you can see. Usually, when a shirt is folded, you can see the size as it's pressed forward.
Oh, right? Okay. So you're saying you're in the folded version, you could see in the back, but that's the only reason that I could think of. I think you're right. I think in theory you're right. It doesn't make sense. The only thing I think of is that when it's folded, I want to see the XL, whatever, or L or whatever, and you can see that right at the top. Yeah. All right. I mean, fair enough. I mean, yes.
Meanwhile, I still always have to make a mess anyway of anytime I've ever had to look for a size and they're all in a pile, I have to wreck the whole aisle by accident.
I mean, I can't by accident. I can't even imagine what you're like shopping. I mean, even the best of us, even me, when I'm looking through the stack, I'm like, you destroyed the stack. This poor person's got to fold everything. You must be a bull in a Gap shop.
Yeah, they definitely see me walking in and they're like, well, there goes the next 45 minutes refolding.
Right. I mean, their whole lives are just folding, unfolding,
refolding, unfolding. Yeah. I'm with you on this. I think I'm totally with you.
What do you think about
for me, but for others,
yeah.
Sure.
What do you think about the lockdown security when you have to try something on now? Give me your date of birth, the number of things you're putting in, and sign your name in blood before you go in.
Never had this happen. I think we're shopping in different places, man. I haven't been to Ross in a while. Is that the
Ross? What is Ross? Don't exist?
I don't know. Where are you going where this happens?
I've recently rediscovered Target.
Oh, okay. So that's why. See, I'm at Buck Mason where they give you a shot of tequila.
Did they really give you booze?
Yeah, and they know me from the neighborhood. They're not putting an ankle monitor on me.
They know me from their neighborhood. If they knew me from the neighborhood, they would not be giving you a shot of tequila.
Wait, so Target, you now have to give them your ID when you try something on?
I'm joking. I mean, Target is it's like
amazing.
A wasteland, like in what's the Mel Gibson movie where like Mad Max. Yeah. It's just empty.
I will say Target is money for little kids. We do a lot of our shopping for Brenner at Target because there's no reason to spend $80 on this much fabric.
And then it disintegrates or it.
Oh, completely. And well, you only have it for 6 months.
Right. That's true. Do you have just a cachet of hand-me-downs for your second kid?
So first of all, this whole thing is not genius, luck, obviously, that we're having another boy, but that Jess's sister has a boy 10 months older. So we haven't had to buy anything for Brenner, and Julian's really getting hand-me-down, just squared.
Wait, did you just tell me your second kid's name?
Yeah. Oh, it's not a secret.
You never told me that.
Now everybody knows. Okay, yeah. Well, it's going to be Julian.
Well, the child has already been born when this is coming out, but
Okay. Yeah.
I can't believe you just slipped that in a podcast and not
Well,
in a
we've been saying it to each other, like in the house. We haven't been telling people, but yeah. So yes.
to other friends now.
No, I don't think so. We just been. Here's why it slipped out because we keep saying it to Brenner out loud to try to get him to know the kid's name.
Got it. Wow, beautiful name. I feel this is almost like when you told the Surgeon General that you were having a kid before anybody else.
Listen, I like to tell the man of the audience first. You guys are my inner circle.
I mean, at least the Surgeon General is a doctor, so it's feel like there's
right. Yeah, exactly. I was like, I better tell my doc, the surgeon.
All right. So speaking of things you should tell and things you shouldn't tell and what the rules are, let's talk about the social contract when it pertains to friendship. Now, first of all, Matthew, from your time in school, and I'm going to say both regular school and law school, do you remember what the social contract is?
No.
Yes, you do.
Just refresh me. I mean, the
Really?
social contract, like what the definition, like the actual definition of it?
You know, the general vibe.
Yeah. I mean, what my son just said, bye-bye. What you sort of rule the normal norms of society. I mean, that's what the social contract is. That's what our norms are.
Right. And I mean, I think the actual definition is the legitimacy of the authority of the state over the individual.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, the social contract includes things like, hey, picking up your garbage, right? Like parking normally, all the things we complain about that people break the social contract on.
Well, I think the high level social contract is like you run a red light, you get arrested, you're put in jail. You didn't agree to any of that. But,
right.
You know, you didn't agree to live under the Constitution.
Right. But we all do, right? Because, we all, when we form a society, we all agree to this social contract.
Right. But you're just born into this. You didn't consent to it.
That is true. That is true. You are born into it. You're born into it.
And then sort of what we talk about is exactly what you just said, which is the social contract sort of between people. You know, you're not walking to Buck Mason and uppercutting somebody for no reason. Although in LA, sometimes that does happen, but you know, you're living with other people, you're sharing space with strangers. But let's drill down a little bit to the social contract between friends, because I think we all have a social contract with our romantic partners, which is, you know, you're going to be faithful. You are, you know, expected to, you know, help out and be nice and, you know, build a life together, but it's a little less explicit when it comes to friendship.
Yeah, that's a great topic. I don't think, you know, I think on some level we've probably covered like a dose of the rule, a dose of the contract, this and that, but this is awesome. So you want to lay out the whole thing.
Yeah. And I think that the key here is that these things are sort of unspoken, and that can be sticky. You know, which is why in a romantic relationship, you're always like, communication is key. The best relationships have good communication. You know, Jess, your wife, gives you the pat, the little bed pat when she needs to give you a little talking to.
No, she does it. She makes me sit down on a chair.
She's the chair.
By the way, I think this is great also because, you know, we talk about on this podcast right from the very beginning, when we launched the pod, we said, you know, there's a sex ed in school, but there's never a friend ed. So all of our education on friendship is haphazard and ad hoc. So thank you for this episode idea, because I think this is going to be super helpful to give people some sort of framework.
Yeah. And so the main tenets of the friendship social contract are mutual support. So you're being there for each other in good times and bad. Trust and confidentiality, which I want to talk about, which is, you know, you have an expectation of some confidentiality when talking to a friend. 3 is communication. You're going to actually discuss and address problems instead of bottling it up and being open to feedback. And then 4 is reliability and consistency, showing up when you say you're going to be, being on time, keeping promises, etc. Those are the basic building blocks of the friendship social contract.
Do you think, I would say everybody's aware of those?
I would say, I mean, everyone is aware of the social contract of a romantic relationship. Doesn't mean you enforce it or do it.
Oh no, but I was gonna get into what do we think are the ones that of that four, like what do you think the one that we're really not sort of addressing properly?
Well, I don't not necessarily know if it's a question of what we're not addressing. It's what causes the most issues.
Okay, okay, okay.
You know, and I think each of them have their own individual things that are difficult. Like, so for the first one is mutual support. We've had many a listener question of like, I'm
Very
there for my
subjective.
buddy.
It's very subjective. That one's very subjective. I think the trust one uh, is more objective and the one that people breach.
Mm.
Like I think a lot of times, like man, I can't. You know, like you should know not to gossip about your friend.
Well, but I would almost argue gossip is the extreme example.
Right. What's the common? Oh yeah, like just saying something you didn't know you shouldn't say, you weren't allowed to say, or something like sharing
Right.
a something that's a secret.
Yeah. Again, even I don't know, like, can I now tell people your son's name?
Right. No, you're right. You know what? It's funny. I'm now realizing that every social contract between friends is unique
Yeah.
to that dynamic. Like you and I are gonna have a different social contract from you and Jeff and you and Londi. That's fascinating, actually.
I don't want to get us the topic, but what about your Julian's middle name?
We're working on it. It's a work in progress.
And then is there a reasoning behind the Julian?
Yeah, it's Jess's great grandfather.
Oh, great. So Jess's grand lineage has a lot of.
Well, it's hilarious. So she almost didn't want to do it because his name was Julian Brenner.
Oh, wow. So the same grandfather twice.
Yeah. It just worked out that those were the names we loved the most.
That's cool.
And Israel is Brenner's middle name, which was my dad. So we're gonna do something on my side for the middle name. So I got second fiddle on both.
Can I? We'll follow up this on a later podcast. I don't know if I told you this. I currently have a genealogist in Poland trying to find my great great grandfather because nobody knows who it is.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Nobody in your family can figure out who this one person. There's one missing link.
Yeah, our records only go back to my great grandfather, so my parents' grandfather. We don't know, who the great great is.
That's why you got to ask your parents and grandparents and write it down and record.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
For
That's what we're trying
Jews,
to
it's
do.
not so easy. For Jews, it's not so easy sometimes.
I know, exactly. So we've got someone tracking it down. So anyway, so yeah, I mean, like, I've definitely, I'm sure we all many times you're talking to a buddy, hey, blah blah blah. Oh, I just heard from blah blah blah. Don't say anything. Like you kind of say the secret, but you say just don't say anything in case you're not supposed to.
I betrayed our social contract. I specifically know when at your birthday 2 years ago with Tony and Lauren, or forget exactly what it was. I don't know what it was, but it was something that I made an oops on.
Yes, I emailed our friend's wife and she never responded to me, and you told her.
Yeah, but I was doing it to try to reconcile. Right. In my mind, I thought I was helping.
Right. And by the way, okay, so those low-level breaches we can say that falls under the next thing, which is communication, which is that, like, okay, things happen, issues happen. Like, I mean, I wasn't mad, but like, you have to communicate to your friends. We always say your friends aren't mind readers. Like, part of the social contract is that, like, I don't know if you're mad at me unless you
Right.
tell me.
Right. I also don't know. Well, let's back up for a second. I think that's right. But I also don't necessarily know what your boundaries are. So I think part of it is like they only get defined by the breaches. You know what I mean? Like, because we never really communicate until something happens that we don't like. So that's where it gets tricky, right? Like, except for the extreme breaches where you're straight up gossiping about your friend, if you don't know what you should or shouldn't share, and you share something, you only find out what your friend's boundaries are when you've crossed the line.
Sure, I guess that makes sense. I mean, I guess that's with everything, right?
Right. I'm just saying, but is there a way to like define them better? Like what is the purpose of laying out the social contract between friends, and not to like get into like, okay, maybe we should come up with some hard and fast rules on some of these things.
All right, I'll
I mean,
tell
I
you a
like
good one.
generally like, hey, you need to communicate. You know, obviously, we always say your friends aren't mind readers. That's number one of our social contract is communicate more. Your friends don't know these things.
I've got a good one, Matt. You're gonna like. So, oftentimes, people ask me how you're doing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
good thing,
Yeah.
Lindsay, best friend Mike. Maybe they know we're best friends. We're a podcast, and I only. By the way, in a nice way. Oh, how's Matt? I only relay good news and never bad news.
I like that. I like that. Although, like obviously if something personal that you thought you should share, I expect that like those boundaries.
Of course, and
But I like what you're saying is like there's an inner circle and don't get too personal with outer circle. Don't speak out of turn.
and I think probably because all our friends are writers, this is maybe more of a professional question. Oh, what's going on with Matt? So he's got this going on, this going. I'm not going to
Right.
say this thing fell
Right.
apart.
No, and that is a line cross. Right. That's like,
Yeah.
sharing somebody's salary or something.
And then the fourth one comes up a lot, which is reliability and consistency. Which is like, you make plans with your buddy, you're expected to show up, you're expected to, not, cancel at the last minute, you're supposed to be on time.
And I think that one is the one that people don't quite understand. When you flake on somebody, when you've made plans and then on Friday night, an hour before you fake a stomach ache, you have broken the social contract. You didn't just flake on your friend, you broke the social contract. And the consequences, you are damaging your friendship.
Right. I mean, it's also just being a good person that you're not just flaking on people, canceling plans.
But I like that framing it as a contract, like these are, quote unquote laws, rules, norms. It's not just, I just didn't show. No, you broke a law of friendship.
Right.
You need a ticket. That's not a felony, right? Flaking on somebody is not a felony, but it's certainly a violation, right? If there was a social contract friendship, like we're the chief friendship officers, if we were officers of the law, we could be handing out violations for that.
Not to get political, but generally in law, are there laws that if you commit X misdemeanors, it becomes a felony, or you can just commit as many misdemeanors as you want?
No, I think, that's that's a good one.
If you just keep shoplifting, does it ever get elevated?
I'm not sure. I think it can get elevated. Actually, I have to double check that, but I think it can get elevated. On the next episode, I'm gonna research it and then I'm gonna get back to you on our next episode.
Listen, Matt,
we have lawyers that have practiced in the past 15 years.
I would say 3 friendship misdemeanors is a friendship felony.
Okay. So, first of all, you're skipping violations. Then you're going straight to misdemeanor. A violation is a parking ticket, right? A violation is a parking ticket. A misdemeanor is a shoplift, and a felony, we know what a felony is.
But it's like,
so do we want 3 tiers, or we only want 2 tiers?
Well, I'm asking, like, if I call you, I'm like, oh, I need to ask you something real quick, and you're like, oh, I got to call you back, and then you never call me back. I mean,
that's a violation. That's a parking. That's low. That's a violation. So, do we want to categorize a flake as a misdemeanor?
Okay, so we're going out tonight at 8 p.m. You call me at 7 p.m. and you're like, I'm not feeling well.
I think that rises to misdemeanor.
I mean, what if you actually aren't feeling well?
No, then it's a violation. I know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
I mean, look, obviously a felony is you speaking badly about somebody, or, sleeping with their wife.
Oh, Jesus. I mean, I think is there anything higher than a felony?
Well, we just call it, that's a capital crime.
Well, that means the death of the friendship.
The death of the friendship, yeah.
Right.
With every friend, does that right? Every felony doesn't necessarily mean the end of a friendship. 3 strikes and you're out.
Well, what would you consider when you told whatever about that I complained about his wife? Or no, I said I complained about this woman. You complained to her face. It's a misdemeanor.
It's a misdemeanor. It's a foul. It's definitely a foul.
All right, let's take a listener question, then we'll come back to this. We'll be right back. Okay, guys, this is asking for a friend. If you have a friendship question or ethical dilemma, send it to us on Instagram at Man of the Year Podcast, and we will answer it on the show. Okay, here we go. Dear Matt and Karo, lately my friend Olivia, this is coming from a woman. Lately, my friend Olivia seems to be ditching me for her newer, shinier, cooler friends, and I feel like I've been downgraded to quote old reliable. Olivia texts me when she needs a favor or a confidence boost, but actual quality time, few and far between. Now, I don't want to be petty, but am I crazy for feeling used and abused? Do I call her out, or has this friendship just run its course and I should quietly move on?
A lot going on there. A lot of things I can relate to.
Yeah, we haven't talked as much about these shiny, newer, cooler friends.
I feel that you talked about it a while ago where you were like, we all gravitate towards that. It's very normal. It's very, very normal. Now, what does that mean for your friendships? I think that's the part a lot of us are not checking in on, right? We gravitate towards the new and shiny thing, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that part of the equation. The part that is wrong is going, okay, I'm completely ignoring my old reliable friend, right? You always have to show them love and appreciation. But the question to me is framed wrong because she thinks there's no other answers. It's either let it be as it is, confront, or end the friendship. And you know what I say? There are seasons for friendship, right? Like right now, I am doing a lot with these new parent friends. That doesn't mean, hey, I'm moving on from old Karo over here, right? But I do have to be more conscious of old Karo if I'm not including him in these things that I'm doing and I'm not making any time or I'm not at least showing gratitude. I mean, I think there are ways, even when the season isn't upon you guys, to spend quality time to maintain that friendship and maintain the goodwill.
So a couple things. We had talked about back in the day that, like, you know, when you meet someone new and they become a new friend, you're just excited to hang out with them and you want to hang out with them all the time, and that happens. You're sort of taking the friend's perspective, which is that when you make this new shiny friend, make sure to include the old friends. You know, the question asker, the question, I mean, I'm sorry, the person who's doing the new friend hanging out might not know it's happening.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? I'm just hanging out with my new friend and whatever. So from the question asker's perspective, obviously the first response is to, you're not just going to end this friendship over this.
Right.
Like, your friend may not even know she's doing it. You could just hang out with her and say, hey, what's going on with the new friends? Oh, blah, blah, blah. You know, I kind of feel like maybe we haven't been hanging out as much. I want to meet them. I want to hang out with them. You know, or just simple as like, I'm feeling a little neglected.
So here's the other part. I find that these are times for you to do reflection, which is great. She's now reflecting and going, okay, so there's a change in my relationship with this friend. They've now, it's almost like when your friend moves, do you then not go try to make new friends if that friend moved to another city? Of course you do. Otherwise, you're just out a friend. And
it's like being a widow.
That's right. Exactly. Right. Totally. Right. Your friend widow. So do you not, you know, you can move on. That doesn't mean you're no longer friends with that person, but this is a good moment to go, okay, maybe now there's a gap here where I had this old friend and we did all this stuff and they're in a different phase. Our friendship's in a different season. Maybe it's time for me to go out and not focus on what they're not doing for me, right? The best relationship, the healthiest relationship you have to have is with yourself and go, okay, I will address it, right? Like what you said, I will address it, but you may not be able to necessarily fix the fact that you're not spending time the way you want to with that friend if they have other things that are going on that are making them gravitate towards a new friend.
Aren't you jumping the gun a little bit though, Matt?
I'm not. I don't think I am. I think, you know, you can confront. I'm just saying I want you to have sort of like this notion that, hey, it doesn't have to end. I can confront them and things can be great and maybe they will spend time with me. But I think you could also be open to the idea that, like, if this is happening, maybe they're in a different phase of life. That's usually why that happens. That's usually you don't just go, I don't want to hang out with my friend Usually it's because like I had a kid or I got a new job and I'm now hanging out with like this new work friend or there's some sort of shift that makes them go, oh, I'm hanging out with this new person. Like I'm hanging out with a lot of my new friends because they're new dad friends. I didn't just go, oh, I want to replace Karo,
Yeah,
right?
but
Like
I mean, that's a very specific example. It's,
no,
you
but
could
I
just
think that's usually why people are out as adults. Like they're making new friends because they're entering a new, whether it's a new hobby they took on or a new work thing or a new life event. But if it's just like, hey, I made a new friend, then I agree with you. You're like, include me. I want to meet this new friend. I want to be part of it.
yeah, yeah. Again, I mean, when I started doing CrossFit and I had all those other new friends, I didn't. That's not an excuse to not hang out with
Right.
schlubs like you guys.
Yes. 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 Yes.
I just think
You did introduce us to them. We were like, no, thanks.
that's that's not cool. By the
No,
way,
it's not true.
I know.
That was just a joke. That's actually not true. We liked
By the
other
way,
people.
you're gonna Lenny. He's a good dude.
Of course, love
He
Lenny.
just made a very good friendship thing. He called me the other day. I missed it because I was doing something, and then he followed up with a text, and he said, "Call to say hi. Been a minute."
I love it.
Great
It's like
friending, right?
classic podcast listener comment. I love that. Somebody who's
Yeah,
actually doing the work, baby. Do the
yeah.
work. No, but you're
And
right. Look, I skipped ahead to all the other possibilities. I think obviously, yes, just address it. Say, hey, man, your friend sounds awesome. Let's all get together. Let's all hang out.
right. Also, again, let's reframe. She said, "My friend Olivia seems to be ditching me." Those friends may be being the friend, inviting her to concerts, inviting her to shit, and you're not inviting her to anything.
Very good point.
It's like when Fireball Adam came into our life. I only wanted to hang out with him because he's the only one who was doing anything cool.
Yeah, he always has cool stuff, right? It's like, what
Doing
do
cool
I
stuff.
have? Nothing.
Nothing. So I think, Matt, we should also, and I think you said this, pretty common. This is a pretty common occurrence. Listen, my friend She got new shinier friends, and I never spoke to him again.
Right. But before we go DEFCON 5 and never talk to that person again, you could just do it in a positive way. Like, hey, I think it's great you made this new friend. She sounds awesome. Love to hang out with her. Right. And then by the way, that'll also tell you what's really going on.
Right. By the way, just to be clear, she said she's been ditched for shiny, cooler friends, plural.
That's what made me believe it's like a mom group or something. That like you don't just like stumble upon a whole new friend group usually, unless something's going on in your life.
Well, listen, I bet you Fireball Adam's old friends are saying, wait a minute, Fireball Adam met up with this group of guys that are cooler and shinier, and we never heard from him again.
Maybe she upgraded, and maybe that's the other answer. Maybe you need to be more fun.
Yeah. I feel like this is our least sort of empathetic answer we've given in a while, but
no, but the empathy is that it happens to everybody. And like you have to look at the different ways to deal with it.
Yeah. And by the way, I mean, again, you're using a very evocative term. She's ditching you. You need to, if Olivia's a real friend, which sounds like she is, you got to have a conversation. Like,
of course, we're not in high school. You don't just ditch people.
Right. You got to get a glass of wine and hash it out and be diplomatic. Okay, guys, that was asking for a friend. If you have a friendship question or ethical dilemma, send it to us on Instagram. We'll answer on the show. All right, before we wrap up, Matt, anything else? Any final thoughts on the friendship social contract?
No, but it hit me that multiple misdemeanors get enhanced into felony. I couldn't think of the word. Enhancements.
Yes.
Our former DA in LA, who we got rid of, thankfully, didn't believe in enhancements as a tool.
Enhancements has a funny connotation in my family. The steak place that we go out for every year for like a family anniversary dinner, they call, when you order like a fillet or whatever steak, and they have, it's called enhancements at this place. So like, do you want, say again?
Sides?
But it's like, do you want horseradish, like cream sauce?
Chimichurri sauce is an enhancement.
Yeah, or peppercorn dry rub or whatever it's called.
Is the restaurant called Enhancements?
I think maybe you've been there. I think it's called, I'd have to look it up, but it's like a pretty nice place in Huntington. And we do a nice family dinner every year.
That's hilarious. They charge $1.50 per enhancement.
Oh, $1.50. I don't know what kind of places you're going to. These are more
$6 horseradish side. I gotta look up. I
expensive.
want to look up their menu. I want to find out how much they charge for their enhancement because I don't think more than $1.50 is appropriate for an
Dollar
enhancement.
fifty. What are you going, McDonald's? That's what you charge for?
Just for the little droplet of chimichurri. Come on.
No, this is a nice.
I'm gonna look it up. What's the place called? I want to look up how much they're charging for their chimichurri.
It's called Prime in Huntington. I mean, let's
Prime.
not bore on our listeners too much with us looking at the menu of a restaurant.
No, they're not going to be bored by this. Everybody needs to know what an enhancement costs at Prime.
All
Let's
right.
see. Menu. Yeah, what else did we learn? I'm looking at their menu right now.
Well, we learned that you need to respect the friendship social contract. It's important to have, actual conversations with your friends about it. Okay, I found it. Horseradish
It's
cream.
$6. It's $6 for the enhancements.
Yes, that's what I told you, man. It's a fancy place.
Wow, $6 for béarnaise sauce. Oh, they have brie fondue as an enhancement. Wow, bordelaise, $6.
Butter poached lobster for $39.
Yeah, that's pricey. $6 horseradish cream. All right. Well, do you guys get the enhancements?
Oh, I mean,
what's your enhancement of choice?
I actually think I keep it in my notes app, but I believe I get the horseradish, and maybe we get some melted blue cheese.
What about that? Wait, so they throw a butter lobster on top of the steak? What?
I think that's their version of surf and turf.
Okay, I was like, that sounds like something you just liquefy on top of the steak.
Yeah.
Okay, Prime. I'll have to check it out.
All right, guys, tell us about your experiences with the friendship social contract, and also, what are your favorite enhancements?
Mine is chimichurri all the way, baby.
All right, guys, thank you for listening. Always remember, be good to your friends, be good to yourself. Love you, buddy.
Love you too.